Adventures in Colorectal Cancer. So this is 2026, May 1st. How did I not wind up with a family doctor at 68 years old? In a country, well, in a province with universal socialized healthcare. So number one, healthcare in Canada are run by the provinces. It's better now, but in the bad old days, they were quite protective of it. Like you had to wait, have an address and wait 3 months before you were covered. So as a kid, I had the family doctor that we've been going to forever. When I did my first degree up until 79, I was covered under that because I was a student. And then when I went logging in 80, I was a contractor and I moved out to BC. And that's when I discovered it took 3 months to get covered, as well as the coverage came off your paycheck. Or if you're a contractor, you had to pay for the coverage. The way I discovered this, how did I discover this? Even if you are on unemployment, that's considered a contract, and you had to pay out of your unemployment check for healthcare. That was a lot less, unless you were on welfare. Welfare covered that, but if you're on unemployment, no, you had to still pay. The 80s in BC were tough. I mean, you couldn't leave groceries in your car. People would smash the window and steal the groceries up in Prince George. I got a job. I can't remember how I discovered that, but I was shocked that even on unemployment you had to pay that. I did have a job logging a agricultural lease, and I cut myself with a chainsaw, not badly, but it took 60 stitches, so I wound up in the hospital. And fortunately, at that time I had a family doctor. He stitched me up for nothing. The way I got a family doctor is like the way I got a dentist. You ask your friends and relatives, who do they have as a dentist or a doctor? Then you called up and you got a doctor. You use that one on reference. 84, I went back to school, so I was covered under province, but because I'd moved again, so I moved from Prince George. I'd spent a few months in Edmonton and Calgary. Then I moved back to Dawson Creek for a year. I was healthy. I was young. I was healthy. I really didn't need a doctor. I was raised that unless you're sick, you don't go to a doctor. Like if, boomer kids, they had lots of them, Boomer parents, or parents of the boomer generation, had lots of kids because the miracle of penicillin really wasn't known. So it wasn't until the 50s and 60s that the miracle of penicillin was discovered, and you didn't have to have lots of kids. So you parents had extended family, you had an extended family, you had lots of kids. So like when they got a snivel or a cold or whatever, you knew how to handle it. But when the boomers started having kids, they became a nuclear family and lost that, and became, every snivel you went to the doctor. So I was raised that, because like hospitals are where you went to be born or to die, or have major surgery done. You didn't wind up in the emergency room because your baby had a fever. Your baby had a fever. Then you asked, you knew because this was your, third or fourth baby that what was going on, and you asked your mother or your grandmother who were like living next door to you. So I didn't have a doctor there. And then as in aviation, because I was moving every 6 months, like it took 3 of those months to get health coverage. And then like, if I wasn't sick, like you just asked a friend who's doctor, and you just tried to get an appointment at a doctor. You went to a clinic. I lived in Terrace up to 92, from 88 to 92. I don't think I ever went to a doctor. I wasn't sick. Like, you got a cold or the flu or, but unless you were really ill, like because at that time doctors even set bones, like you broke an arm, unless it was like a compound fracture, you went to the doctor and he just set it there in the clinic. And then I went back to school in 92 to UVic, and I was in co-op. So that's every 4 months you're in Victoria or at some other place, which may or may not be in province, but it's a different town. So no, there was no, I didn't have a family doctor because I was going, unless I was sick, I was going someplace, at a different place and had to find a different doctor all the time. Health records weren't as easy accessible by everyone. And so they really didn't know you, right? This was we're still talking pre-internet days, right? Pre-cell phone, pre-internet days. And then when I moved back to Vancouver, it was the same thing. When I needed a dentist or a chiropractor, I asked friends and got references and, use them. But like a doctor, you weren't going, it's not like a dentist where you go every 6 months for a checkup at that time, in the mid-late 90s. And then somewhere along the line, BC changed how they operate their healthcare system. It became socialized. Now, I'm going to say something, and I just suspect this is what happened. But, when people would go to the doctor, if the doctors, they see a baby and it's the same, because boomer families became nuclear and dissociated from their parents and from their extended family. When something happened to the baby, they couldn't ask their mother or their brothers or sisters or whatever. They just went to the doctor. And, when colds hit a community, every baby's going to have a cold. So every doctor is going to see the same thing. So you're not going to get your whatever it is, 20 minutes with the doctor because he's busy and he's going to look at the baby and go, okay, this is the 10th baby I've seen with the exact same symptoms. Here you go, get out the door, I'm moving on. Politely though. And this, probably pissed off the boomers because they're quite entitled. They have quite a sense of entitlement. No, my tax dollars are paying for this. I want my 20 minutes or 25 minutes or whatever it is. And as well, the doctors were pushing back because if I'm, the good doctors are getting overworked because everyone's recommending you're asking who's a good doctor, and all the good doctors are getting the recommendations, and the less good doctors aren't. So they're not making any money. They're not getting any patients. The good doctors are overloaded. So the government instituted a policy where a doctor could have, a general practitioner could have only so many patients and see only so many patients a day. So it became socialized because, all doctors are exactly the same because they all had the same training, right? So there I am. At that point, I can no longer get the doctor that my friends are recommending. I've got to just take a crapshoot. And I've got to find a doctor that's actually accepting new patients. And the only doctors that are accepting new patients are new, inexperienced doctors. Or doctors that have just moved here, but rarely do doctors sell off their practices and move to a different province. Because healthcare is provincial and you have to go through a whole different the doctors are certified provincially, not federally, and then you have to go through a whole series of things to become certified provincially. Engineers, all the professions are the same or were the same. What doctors could do is set up a clinic. And in clinics, walk-in clinics, you can see as many patients a day as you want. So doctors now, and I'll be careful, many doctors now have both a clinic practice and a family practice. They'll do the family practice 2 or 3 days a week, and the rest of the days are in their clinic because they can make more money in the clinic. They can just see more people. So I just started using clinics because, like, rarely do I get sick enough to go to, well, if I'm sick enough to see a doctor, I'm sick enough to go to the Emerge, right? And it takes up to 2 weeks or more to get an appointment. Even walk-in clinics now really aren't walk-in clinics. You need an appointment online. So it's like 2 weeks away. So which, if you are really not well, you're going to wind up in Emerge. So this puts a huge stress on the emergency wards. So no, man, if I've got and so doctors now become gateways to specialists. If you've got a broken arm, you don't go to your doctor anymore. You go to the hospital and you go to Emerge and they'll fix you up. If you need a blood test, so I had, because of the family history of stroke in men in their late 70s, if I wanted an ECG to check out my heart, the family doctor writes me a script. I go to the medical clinic. The medical clinic takes the ECG, or the medical lab takes the ECG. Then they send it to the cardiologist, who makes a determination, then sends it back to the family doctor, and then I have to make an appointment with the family doctor for him to read me back the report that the cardiologist just diagnosed from the one the medical lab took. I mean, it's just Byzantine, right? So family doctors are now gatekeepers of specialists. And the other thing, you want to make more money, you don't become a GP, you become a specialist because they just make more money, right? So in British Columbia's effort to socialize medicine so everybody's equal, they've just really changed how the system works. Lots of specialists. Everybody's a specialist. GPs are just gatekeepers to the specialist. I'm not sure what that lump is on your lip. Off to the oral surgeon. I'm not sure what's wrong with your intestines. Off to the gastroenterologist or the colonoscopist. And then they send back the reports and then just read the reports. Like, why do I even need you? Why don't I just make the appointment with this guy? Because that's all you're going to do. Because if they make a misdiagnosis, they're not making enough money. I mean, their errors and omissions insurance is just a lot. And they're not making enough money in their GP to really cover that. So, to ensure that they don't do a misdiagnosis, they send you off to the specialist. So yeah, so in my mind, if the GP, so in my mind, I don't see a big difference between going to the same medical clinic all the time and trying to see the same doctor and getting a family doctor, because they have a volume of patients and I'm just another face in the crowd. This wasn't like the bad old days when I was a kid where the family doctor knew the family because they went back generations. It's a nuclear family that were very mobile. They may only see me for 3 or 4 years. Then I move and I get a new family doctor if I can. So yeah, so that's how I wound up here at 68 without a family doctor and relying on walk-in medical clinics, which aren't walk-in anymore either. They're walk-in if you have an appointment, which is just like, are you listening to yourself? Yeah. So there you go. So making appropriate life decisions. You don't make any money, but you get good stories.